You can go by using the address, find it, go to the. Call the July 6th meeting of the Casa Grande Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Please rise and join me for a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Natalie, would you call the roll?
Member Aldrett.
Here.
Member Vanderhayden.
Here.
Member Hubbard.
Here.
Member Peters.
Here.
Member Estrada. Vice Chairman Garza.
Here.
Chairman Benedict.
Here. And I will note that Member Estrada has an excused absence this evening. Any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right. Commissioners, minutes.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 8th meeting.
Second that.
Very good. I have, yep. did you get that?
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. If there's any discussion for this, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Okay, next is our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, and rather than going through the course of explaining consent agenda, I would like to pull this item and have hear from presentations. So, next order of business will be a request by Jay Hicks on behalf of Promenade Village for a major site plan development for dwelling units. Let's see, 209 one-story dwelling units, DSA 23-00005. James.
Right. Good evening, Chairman, members of Planning Commission. This is a request for consideration of approval of a major site plan known as Promenade Village. It's approximately an 18.82 acre site that lies on the west side of Mission Parkway, just north of the Promenade Shopping Center. You'll notice on the aerial the promenade wraps around it to the west and to the south. The proposal is to develop these approximate 19 acres as a multifamily medium-density community. It would be comprised of 209 dwelling units. 106 of those units would be single-bedroom, 78 of those units would be two-bedroom, and 25 would be three-bedroom. All of the dwellings would be single-story and range from 782 square feet in size to 1,262 square feet in size. This is known as a build-to-rent community in that it's not a traditional multifamily community with garden-style apartments. They're detached from each other. The single-bedroom units would be in the form of duplexes, and then the two-bedroom and three-bedroom units would be individual dwellings. But it would be all rented on one property and managed and maintained by property management company. Here's an excerpt of the major site plan. You'll notice the layout of both the duplexes and the standalone units. This would be a gated community. And here's some examples of their elevations. The site does feature a clubhouse and other recreational amenities. The picture on the top right, the bottom right is an example of one of their duplex units, which would be the single bedroom units as a duplex. They're also proposing a limited number of garage spaces, as you see on the left. When reviewing major site plans, these are the criteria that have to be addressed, and the staff report goes into each of these in detail, but I just want to focus on a couple of the items. The the first two items I want to talk about is the overall conformance with the property's zoning and the general plan. So this site is located within the Casa Grande Commons PAD. It's a 591 acre PAD that goes up to Courtson Road on the north. There's a small disconnected portion of it that sits at the corner of Hacienda and Florence. And then otherwise it predominantly lies west of Mission Parkway. This would actually be the very first development within this large 591 acre PAD. And it's also momentous in that it would be the first development within our large mixed use general plan category. We added that general plan category a few years back, and it's a dynamic land use category that allows a wide variety of uses. 50% of the acreage can be developed residentially, but only 30% of that 50% can be medium density residential. This project is considered medium density residential in that it averages out to about 10.37 dwelling units per acre, whereas medium density is allowed to go up to 12 dwelling units per acre. As you see, this site would sit perfectly next to the promenade, so it would really help capture what is intended by this large mixed-use general plan category, providing a mixture of both residential and commercial uses for ultimate connectivity and walkability. These residents would have the ability to do banking, do retail shopping, restaurant visits, within the promenade close by. The next concern that I want to talk about is traffic. With the major site plan, a traffic impact analysis was provided, and it had recommended improvements be made to Mission Parkway. And I want to walk through the condition of Mission Parkway with you. So currently, Mission Parkway is a 2-lane road. It's about 24 feet wide, and it sits within 40 feet of public right-of-way. The public right-of-way is defined between the two purple lines. That 40 feet of right-of-way sits exclusively west of the Mission Parkway center line. Mission Parkway is designed ultimately to be a major collector, so that means it would ultimately be 80 feet of right-of-way. So only half is in existence. It was dedicated from the promenade all the way up to Cottonwood at the time of Promenade's development. And so the improvements that you see sit within 40 feet of the right-of-way, whereas ultimately there would be 80 feet. So the traffic impact analysis had indicated that there would be the need for a northbound left turn lane into the Promenade Village development. And that would be to the left on the screen. So in order to accomplish that, they would have to make what currently is the southbound lane the northbound left turn lane. And they would have to add a new southbound lane in the unused portion of right-of-way that exists. So I'll show you how that would be done. They would add a new southbound lane and a public sidewalk, and that can fit all within the right-of-way. It would require the power lines, though, which belong to ED2, to be relocated off the right-of-way into a public utility easement on the property itself, and it would be undergrounded. Here's the cross-section for Mission Parkway. The top shows the interim, showing how the public improvements can fit within the existing 40 feet of right-of-way. And then the bottom exhibit shows what the ultimate cross-section would look like. That can only be achieved if there's development on the other side of the road. At that time, there would be the requirement for that property owner to dedicate 40 feet. So now that we have a total of 80, and there can be the completion of street improvements. And there would ultimately have to be restriping for everything to match up. Regarding the notification efforts, we followed that which is required by code. Staff did visit with the owner of the property on the other side of Mission Parkway to identify any concerns. I do believe that owner is in attendance tonight, so that she will have an opportunity to speak. But other than that, I have not received any formal comments or responses. So with regard to staff's recommendation, we do ask that you move to approve the major site plan request for Promenade Village, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? First one. Okay, hearing none, next, I appreciate the applicant or their representative, if they'd like to come forward and address this issue.
How you doing? Hey, Jimmy. I'm Josh Holmes, Executive Vice President with Modus Companies.
Very good. And your address, please.
7147 East Rancho Vista, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85251.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think James nailed it pretty apropos. We have been in business for 20 years, though. We're an award-winning multifamily developer based out of Scottsdale. Ed Gorman is the founder of the company. He's still on holiday from 4th of July, so all I know. Any questions?
Thank you. Appreciate it. This time I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public that would like to address this issue, please come forward, give us your name and address.
Hello, my name's Cindy Compton, 1247 North Hacienda Road. I've been looking around Casa Grande, and we have apartments going in at Truckle and Quartzen, Truckle and Jimmy Kerr, behind Whataburger, Truckle and Cottonwood, Cottonwood and Pert, Truckle and Rodeo, and a place by Cracker Barrel. And this, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll be the 7th apartment building we're trying to bring into Casa Grande. And I'm just wondering what the vision is for Casa Grande, what we want our city to look like. We have Lucid Motors that laid off 1,000 people, over 1,000. We have Nikola in Coolidge that's laid off 1,000. And I'm wondering, with putting in all these apartments, is that something that we need right now? I know that Kohler is coming in, but there's a large movement toward robotics, so I'm not sure how many people we're going to be bringing in with those. I have concerns about the septic system for 209 units. What are we going to do with the waste products from that? I had concerns about the road system, but as Mr. Gagliardi reported, they've worked that out. But we have pecan trees. They're in their 5th year of planting, and it's a 100-year crop. So it's not something that we're looking forward to, and not something we're planning on staying. We're not planning on moving. So I thank you for the consideration, and I would request that this be removed from the consent agenda. Has that already been done?
Already been done. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Benedict.
Bet. Thank you, Ms. Cole. Anybody else like to address this issue?
I was going to be a quiet mouse tonight, but I too wonder why. My name is Gloria Johnson Story, 1245 East Laurel Drive and
Thank you.
1180 East Rodeo Road. Why are we building all of these apartments Treckle Road is nothing but solid apartments. And they're not, these are one story. The ones on Treckle are all 3 stories tall. It's going to be going like down a tunnel to go down Treckle Road. I'm asking that we look at this a little deeper and try and find out why we need this many apartments. And at this point, I think it's time we really look at it instead of just keep approving more apartments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else like to address this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission. Commissioners. Yes, please.
I noticed on the north end of this unit where there's an existing well, are we going to have a problem getting in and out like we were on the one on Pert?
I don't think so, just because there's no curb there.
So there won't be?
They'll just come off the road and access the well site.
You think, okay, that's just a question.
Chairman, I was wondering
Yes,
if
sir.
Paul on the phone might be able to elaborate on the circumstances of why the commission sees a lot of multifamily opportunity right now. I know you've given this spiel once before, but I think it'd be helpful for the public to hear it again. With regards to water rights.
Certainly. Happy to comment on that, Commissioners. There's a couple issues regarding why we're building multifamily and build-to-rent developments. One, of course, is that single-family subdivisions can only be constructed if they have certificates of assured water supply. And the Arizona Department of Water Resources has limited and actually stopped issuing any additional certificates of assured water supply within the Pinal County AMA, which includes Casa Grande. So the only new resident subdivisions that can construct are those that have previously obtained their certificates of assured water supply. There are about 20,000 vacant single-family lots that do have those certificates. So we do have adequate certificates to construct single-family home subdivisions sometime into the future. However, there's a lot of vacant land that, like this piece and others, that do not have certificates of assured water supply and therefore cannot become single-family residential subdivisions. Having said that, we do have a demand for new housing. We're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 5,000 housing units short of meeting our actual demand. So we can't meet all of our housing demand with single-family homes. We do have to meet some of our demand with alternative housing types, such as apartments, built-to-rent, manufactured home parks, etc. So we do need a diverse types of housing to meet our demand. Our general plan actually speaks to that and encourages us to provide alternative housing choices to the typical single-family home for our residents. And so these types of developments that you're looking at tonight help meet that demand and actually implement those general plan recommendations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So just for
Go ahead,
clarity.
please.
So the general plan identified this zoned property as future large mixed commercial residential multifamily. Okay, so the general plan is voted on by, it was in 2020 when it was sent to the voters to look at the big picture of what Casa Grande would look like? Was that when it was on the ballot?
Yes, Chairman Benedict, Commissioner Garza. So the last vote was in 2021, but large mixed use was applied to this area previous to that. It actually was imposed on the site not on an election year. It was a major general plan amendment that was done introducing that category, I believe like in 2018 or thereabouts. I might be a year or two off, but it was introduced as a new land use category.
But it was, I'm just trying to paint the picture of we, the commission, can't really dictate what the future of Casa Grande looks like. That general plan's like the guiding document of all these, you know, multifamily areas, future single-family residential, commercial opportunities. It kind of identifies all those little spots within the city that would holistically, everybody kind of has a consensus, right?
Right, to me, we would follow the guidelines.
From the
yeah,
plan.
Right, in those plans. Certainly conceptually for me, that's the way that goes. James, do you know, does this, not this development, but that whole plot, does it have any cause?
Chairman Benedict, it doesn't. In fact, there is no property on the east side of I-10 north of Florence Boulevard that has certificates of assured water supply. There are some on the south side of Florence Boulevard, but that's, you know, per what Paul was saying, that's going to really lead how and what gets developed on that side.
Well, in particular with, you know, the concept of having the community, mixed kind of community where we, you know, can live close to shopping and those facilities. That's certainly what the goals of, you know, of that is. And, so, you know, this seems to fit that plan. Commissioners, anything
Just one.
else? Yes, please.
Just one comment. I know it seems to all of us that live in this community that there are a lot of apartment projects that are coming at us all at once. I mean, we've been seeing them for the last probably year and a half, 2 years. And prior to that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was any new apartment complexes built since Tierra Point over on Rodeo. That was the last one that I remember. So it seems like it's about time that we do get some new options. So, and I know personally I like the trend that everybody is following, the developers, as far as these low-profile, build-to-rent type communities with several amenities too. That just seems like a good fit for our community.
Thank you. Anything else? Chris, you look worried there, friend.
No, I
Which usually you come up with something good after that. I'm trying to learn to read you these days.
No,
Okay.
I think this is a good plan.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure, that I know we have been, approving a lot of different rental properties. And are we up to speed, like, for the growth? I mean, it seems like what am I trying to say? Basically up to speed with the growth of, Casa Grande with apartments. Are we under or over a building? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Is there a shortage of apartments?
yeah, is there a shortage of apartments? Are we at capacity right now of what we should be?
kind of what the director was alluding to, that there is a demand for 'em.
Because I'm thinking there is. I just want to make sure, that's all.
Well, it's, conceptually, the folks that are putting, all the money and blood, sweat, and tears into these things aren't doing it because
No.
they don't think there's a demand, because there's
I see the demand. I just want to
demand.
make sure.
So, they're doing it this way because of it. They wouldn't be there. Presumably, I'm sure some of them, we all have our failures, but certainly they won't all. We're trying to meet what the demand is in a sense. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the request by Jay Hicks on behalf of Promenade Village LLC to approve the major site plan for the development of the 209 one-story single and two-family dwelling units covered under DSA-23-00005.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion to approve DSA 23-00005 and a second. Any discussion? Commissioners, very good. Please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for your input. It is appreciated. Okay, next on our agenda, we're into our regular new business agenda. We're going to have a public hearing, consider a recommendation of approval for Jane Cauldron of Matrix Design Group on behalf of Brian Pazuchis. I'm going to skip that because I almost spelled it. For a zone change, B2 to R3. This is DSA 2300, too many zeros, 78.
So to clarify, the request is to change the zoning that's currently B2 and R3 to
Oh.
PAD.
Thank you.
No problem.
Apologize for that.
It's a little bit of a mouthful there, so I understand.
Oh, I'm stumbling around.
So this is a rezone request to be known as McCartney Commons PAD. A little bit of background and overview of the site. It's approximately 20 gross acres, and it sits just to the west of I-10 and on the south side of McCartney Road. Currently, the parcel is in two zone districts. There's a small B2 zone that sits in the corner there, and the bulk of the property is zoned R3. B2 is our general business zone, and R3 is our multifamily residential. The request is to rezone those two zone designations to create the McCartney Commons Planned Area Development Zone. And it would create two commercial parcels that would in total be approximately 10.76 acres, and then a multifamily parcel to the south, which would be a little smaller than that. One of the elements of this PAD as well is to introduce circulation through it by means of the extension of Tucker Road. So the Marabella subdivision sits to the south of this proposed zone change area. It has gone through its pre-plat stage, and it's scheduled for, and its final plat's been approved by council, and the plat's been awaiting recordation. But in the Marabella subdivision, it does call for Tucker along the east side of its development. And so this PAD would extend Tucker along the east side of its PAD. And then at some point in the middle, it would provide an east-west road to ultimately connect to the existing portion of Tucker that sits within the McCartney Center PAD. When reviewing the criteria involved with proposed PADs, the staff report goes into more detail all of these items identified on the screen, but I want to just focus on the yellow highlighted ones. The first one is to talk about conformance to the city's general plan. So this property sits within the Commerce and Business General Plan land use designation. Within the general plan commerce and business land use category, it describes that developments in a commerce and business area should be continuous, promoting movement between buildings and creating cohesive multi-use activity centers. So the fact that they are proposing a mixture of commercial and multifamily development, as well as providing an opportunity for some interconnectivity with an outlet to undeveloped property to the west, which also sits within commerce and business, will help achieve that. Within the commerce and business land use category, it identifies appropriate land uses, and both multifamily residential and commercial are identified, and PAD zoning is listed as an appropriate base zone district. It goes on to say multifamily residential developments shall be built on campus-style development sites with a gross density between 10 to 45 dwelling units per acre. So there is a potential for the multifamily portion to have a significantly high density in that area, but that is afforded to it based on that commerce and business general plan category. That's one of the reasons why the request is a PAD instead of leaving it zoned as R3, because in the R3 category, they wouldn't be able to achieve that density due to certain development standard restrictions that are imposed in the R3 zone. One of the goals within the commerce and business category is to improve site design in commercial and industrial locations, particularly those along higher value corridors. So there's two action steps that I want to talk about. The first is to use PAD zoning to create unified design and landscaping between sites. And the second action step is to encourage connectivity between sites for both vehicular and non-vehicular transportation. With regard to conformance to the city's zoning ordinance, the multifamily piece, which I was talking about on the previous slide, would require conformance to the 2021 PAD residential design standards. That imparts certain buffers and setbacks to ensure compatibility between it and surrounding development. So although this site would have the ability to be up to 45 dwelling units per acre, they do have to provide a certain amount of minimum landscape frontage, minimum setbacks, a minimum of 20% open space. They are proposing the same height of 35 feet maximum as what would exist in the R3 zone. And buildings that are greater than 28 feet in height would have to be at least 50 feet from any single-family zone. The commercial area is proposing some customized standards that it's afforded to it as a PAD. They're proposing a minimum landscape frontage ranging between 10 to 15 feet, whereas in the B2 zone, there's a landscape frontage requirement of 15. There isn't that ability to be flexible. And they are proposing a maximum height in the commercial area of 45 feet, whereas ordinarily it'd be 35 if this were to remain a B2 zone. And the setbacks along the front have been modified. The buildings can be as close as 15 feet, but that's only if between the building and the street there only exists landscaping. If there's any other type of improvement, then it would have to meet the regular 35-foot setback. And there is a greater open space requirement as a PAD of a minimum of 15%, whereas in the B2 zone, 10% would be the minimum open space. The uses proposed for both areas are very similar to what you'd find in the B2 and R3 zones. Of course, as a PAD, this commercial area could propose uses such as gas stations or convenience food restaurants that would not be subject to conditional use permit review like it ordinarily would if it were the B2 zone. But otherwise, a lot of the uses are the same, and the multifamily area would allow traditional apartment development. The next criteria that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on existing and anticipated traffic and pedestrian and vehicular ingress and egress. So firstly, I want to sort of describe what's surrounding the property. We have Urban Ranch state-owned land to the east, and then there's Urban Ranch property to the west that's owned by the Knowles. And then on the north side, on the other side of McCartney, the land is part of the McCartney Center PAD, and that the specific parcel directly to the north is designated for commercial. And then, of course, we have the Marabella planned area development, which is predominantly single-family residential that lies to the south. And this shows you the overall planned roadway network where there's Tucker shown along the eastern boundary of Marabella, and then the extension of Hennis through the Marabella PAD, and it takes on a northwest to southeast direction. But the first thing that I want to speak to is the pedestrian connectivity. So our general plan identifies a community trail along McCartney Road that extends from I-10 to Palomino Parkway that would ultimately be installed as those sites develop. And this PAD does identify the presence of that community trail, and it would pretty much just take the form of a soft decomposed granite path that would parallel the public sidewalk. They are providing for vehicular ingress and egress, as I mentioned on the previous slide, by proposing the extension of Tucker from the south and then an east-west route through the PAD. And this PAD plan does show 2 access points with McCartney. They're showing a proposed right-in, right-out at the eastern boundary. And then they were proposing full access somewhat in the middle of their PAD. So their traffic analysis was reviewed by our city traffic engineer as well as ADOT because of the proximity to I-10. And the findings were that that proposed full access was not acceptable. The right-in, right-out was acceptable, but the proposed full access was not, because ADOT requires that there not be a full access intersection from the interstate interchange no closer than 999 feet and preferably up to somewhere past 2,000 feet away. And so ADOT recommended that the preferred first full access location from I-10 be at Tucker Road, where it currently sits within the McCartney Center PAD. So that proposed full access is not possible. What we will have to ultimately do is review to see if a right-in, right-out there would be acceptable. The applicant would also like to explore the opportunity for it to perhaps be a 3/4 turn. However, I do want to remind the commissioners that we're at the zoning stage, and the plan that you see here is conceptual with regard to the driveway locations. It's not until the major site plan consideration that we can really lock these locations down, because at the major site plan, we would have the opportunity of a very specific traffic impact analysis and more information to determine what would be appropriate. Now, the location of these proposed driveways, as well as the east-west portion of the road that's sitting in between the commercial and the residential areas, has prompted concerns from the adjacent property owner to the west, the Knowles, namely because where they're proposing the extension of the road would place that outlet onto their property in a location that leaves a potential gap of land. They are planning to parcel out their property to other development interests, and they are looking at parceling out an area identified on the screen there, and it would leave approximately about a 200-foot gap between that planned parcel and where the east-west road would be. And so to help address that concern, there is a, well, let me back up. Their other concern is with the fact that the conceptual plan identifies these driveways. They have a concern with that too because we do have access management standards that require spacing between driveways be set distances. And these distances actually don't meet the required standard. If these were to be installed as proposed, they'd basically be the right in, right out. The distance between the right in, right out and the next driveway would be about 400 feet, which falls short of the minimum of 660. And so the other concern that the Knolls have is, will these driveways impact their ability to place a driveway onto their parcel in the future? So there's two recommendations to help address those concerns. The first is to, it's a requirement of the McCartney Commons PAD to update their land use plan to provide dimensions of each of the land use parcels. That'll be helpful so that we know exactly what the planned depth is of the parcels and where exactly they're identifying that east-west road to be, to help with the overall planning of where it is conceptually shown to tie into the adjacent property. As a conceptual graphic, all we know for sure is that the north-south portion of Tucker is accurate. It would line up with where Marabella is showing it. It would run along the eastern boundary, but where it goes east to west really can't be locked down. And so that leads to the second recommendation, that due to the uncertainty of the alignment where planned between the commercial and multifamily areas, there would be a condition that would allow each of these land use areas to vary in size of up to 10%. That would give some flexibility so that if Tucker needed to, or if that east-west road needed to shift to the north a little bit or ultimately to the south, it wouldn't thereby make the commercial area out of compliance if it happened to increase in size by 10% or decrease by 10%. With regard to the notification we followed, which is required by code, we did receive comments from the owners of the property to the west, as I was mentioning, not in favor of the alignment of the east-west road within McCartney Commons. They also have concerns that the proposed driveway locations onto McCartney will limit or predetermine their planned driveway locations. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward a recommendation to City Council to approve this zone change, subject to the technical modification and the condition of record that I spoke of. There's an additional condition that I didn't address, but it's fairly standard, and that is the requirement for there to be public right-of-way dedication for McCartney Road if the city needs it as part of a public improvement project prior to the time that we would ordinarily ask for dedication. Normally, we wouldn't ask for it until the time of development, but this condition would give us the authority to ask for that right-of-way prior. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Commissioners, if I could just note, can you please speak into the microphone? Paul can't hear you guys unless your microphones are on.
Yes.
Oh, if it's just Paul.
Paul, tell him to be here. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. So My question, now I forgot it because we had a conversation, but the, Jim, where is the secondary access to this site in the interim before all this infrastructure gets built? I'm just concerned it looks like one big cul-de-sac.
So it for sure gets a right in, right out on the eastern boundary, and there is the potential for some secondary access point along McCartney somewhere, but we won't know that until the major site plan. But I would say it would be to the south. That eastern property boundary is actually a section line where there exists a 33-foot wide roadway easement. And Marabella is actually relying on that prior to it becoming official right-of-way for its secondary ingress and egress.
Yeah, do you have a picture with the Marabella PAD, how it's laid out, the infrastructure?
The best thing I have, and of course it's like 47 slides away. Let's see.
There we go.
This is probably the best in that it shows sort of the planned streets through it. You don't see the proposed lots, so that would be helpful, but that gives you a better idea of some of the street network.
So that Rosewood Place would be on Marabella's property, like their
Yeah,
western?
Rosewood's part of Marabella, yeah.
And
The boundary goes all the way to the fire station that you see the building on the south side of McCartney on the left.
And then the Knowles property is just east of that
It's
alignment?
between Rosewood, it's the rectangular yellow parcel, and to the right of Rosewood, and the blue that's sitting in between that and the McCartney Commons.
Monier, you got some work to do over here to try and figure out what this is all gonna look like in the future. Just because Palomino Parkway seems like it'll be a future. You know, is that a future, it's a 5-lane?
It's an arterial road, correct, and it actually, that's where Hennis it's planned to change names from Palomino to Hennis, because Hennis goes at a southeast to northwest angle there, up until at some point it does meet what I'm calling the Tucker alignment, because that section line is actually where Hennis
Should be.
but then it shifts off of its alignment north of Cottonwood in order to basically become to follow the angle of the interstate, and our general plan had identified that it shifted at some point.
This
There
is-
were some barriers in the way further south that
This
caused
is
it to shift.
this is the anti-truck folks, right? To the Nexus property. And then my last question is, the road that's gonna split the two commercial properties, is that a public road or is that a private road?
It would be, are you talking about what you see on the left there?
Yes.
So what they're showing is it would be public right-of-way, and it would be basically a collector, a major collector through the site.
Got it, okay. That's all I have.
So conceptually, folks coming up to get to that intersection from the south are gonna come up Tucker Road, turn around, make that left turn and then the right turn to get to McCartney.
If there's gonna be a name change, then the Tucker Road's not even close to being in alignment.
No, but we're talking about a zoning right now, so somebody led me down
Sorry.
the rabbit trail here. Okay, but any other questions? Yes, please.
One more question. So Hennis, how far down is Hennis going to go? I know we've talked about this, but I still don't get a concept of it. Like south. Will it hit Cottonwood Lane or will it go to Florence?
So right now, Hennis the part of Hennis that exists starts at basically Jimmy Kerr, and it's a dirt road there, but
Right.
but you can probably do it. It starts at Jimmy Kerr and it goes all the way to Cottonwood. But what's planned north of Cottonwood is it basically would continue north past Cottonwood, but before you get to Quartzen, it starts to veer to the east. And part of the reason is it can't continue straight through because it runs into Mission Valley. So, because Mission Valley was built kind of into that planned alignment. So it starts to shift to the east, and then it lines up to become parallel with the Kinder Morgan gas line. You can see that actually on this aerial. You see that gash through the,
Diagonal.
yeah, right there. So Hennis, and basically Palomino, where Palomino's been constructed, it's paralleling that gas line easement. But, so Hennis would parallel the gas line easement.
Okay.
And of course, it's cropped. I know that would be helpful for you to see it, but if you follow that angle of that gas line easement to the, like if you pictured it continuing at a southeast angle,
Okay.
where it would ultimately touch Tucker is pretty much where it would then become one.
And then how far down will Tucker go?
It would probably stop. We don't have an actual future circulation plan for that street because where those streets meet up is currently zoned urban ranch, and there's no certificates of assured water supply on the property, so it may take a while for the actual alignment to be adjusted.
Okay,
What is the dwelling units per acre for urban ranch?
So we allow 1 dwelling unit per acre and a quarter.
Okay, large lots.
can you go 45 slides back? Can you go to the, the chart of comparing those?
Yes.
Just to be sure, I think you answered it.
So this one shows the R3, and then I have another chart where it compares to the B2.
Gotcha. So, yeah, go to that one for the commercial section. Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Helps clear my mind. Commissioners, any other questions for staff? All right, would the applicant or their representative please come forward and give us your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Kyle Barkello. I'm with Simpatico Communities. We are the group looking to acquire this property and develop it as you see it here tonight. My address is 17470 North Pacesetter Way in Scottsdale, Arizona. So this has been a very long journey to get to this point. So I'd be remiss if I didn't spend at least 3 minutes just kind of explaining the overall picture and the context of what's before you tonight. So we went in to purchase this property from the property owner dating back to January of 2022. So we spent the next better part of a year pouring through all the documentations on the overall roadway network and the alignment, the system, and all that good stuff. So Jim, you had a slide, if you don't mind me asking you to go back to, I think it was the second slide, that showed kind of the overall view. And that'll help kind of explain the context of Hennis and Tucker and whatnot. So as we understand it, the old Hennis alignment was shown in a prior general plan. And that Hennis alignment follows where that Tucker alignment is, going up to where that McCartney Road is, close to that I-10 interchange. Of course, that's too close to the I-10 interchange. ADOT would have had an issue with that. So then it was redesignated through the Marabella PAD to ultimately connect up to Palomino Parkway. So we're talking about a major principal arterial, which is, I think, 6 lanes total of traffic. And the bulk of the traffic is going to be following that alignment and going to McCartney and traveling east-west accordingly from that. What you don't see is the lotting plan, as Jim mentioned, with the Marabella PAD. We've been in close communication with the Marabella property owners, and we understand fully that they need Tucker Roadway's emergency access to go north. So at that time, when we were going back and forth with the city and we learned of this situation, our preliminary traffic estimates didn't suggest that Tucker Roadway really served a broader purpose, given that Hennis's final roadway alignment was going to carry the bulk of the traffic up to McCartney. But we worked together and figured out a solution that we thought made sense for us, which also met the city's transportation goals, providing that secondary access with Tucker. And ultimately, we agreed to run it through our property in the way you've seen it today. And that is primarily because of the commercial nature of this PAD along that frontage, and not really knowing that the Knolls were in any position to develop their property. In fact, we weren't made aware of Quick Trip even being involved until I think it was April of this year. So just recently have they took interest in what this PAD is and where the alignment is shown. And we did have a prior meeting with them to kind of show this plan as such. But again, nothing was set in stone, no applications were submitted, no progress had been made up to this point. So we proceeded as we kind of agreed to in coordination with the city that, hey, this is what we feel is the best thing that we can do for the time being, knowing that as major site plans come in, it's gonna need to shift shape as needed. The primary access point was very strategically placed because it was far enough away from Tucker Roadway and far enough away from ADOT. So we're really limited on what access can be on our property. And in fact, a right in, right out allows nobody to turn left and nobody to turn in. By and large, gives zero access to this property. So it's already very challenged. So in creating a PAD, as you know, character is a big part of that, and we need to coordinate the signage, we need to coordinate the standards, the primary entryway. So we felt that that location was most appropriate because knowing that any future development to the property to the west has full access at that Tucker roadway alignment. They can easily go to full access. And I believe there's a traffic signal warranted at Tucker and McCartney in the future. So as that comes in, they just hit that access point and then they're able to have full access beyond that. So we would imagine as Tucker gets extended westwardly, all the traffic or the majority of the traffic from our site, well, a portion of it, would then, anybody looking to turn westbound would be able to hit on that Tucker roadway alignment and turn westbound at that point. So I just want to briefly explain that to the commission. I thought it might be helpful, and just to really reiterate that we're prepared to kind of work with the city when the major site plan comes in, and definitely kudos to Jim for putting up with the many meetings and all the shape shifting of the staff report. He's always done such a great job in helping applicants through. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for? All right.
I have a
Yep,
question.
you go, girl.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi.
I feel like it would have behooved you guys to kind of work with the Knolls to try and build the loop road, what Tucker would be. You know, what this, you know, if you guys partnered together and you guys both built this loop, there wouldn't be a need for the the additional full access onto McCartney, which splits the two commercial pieces and creates this little road that the city has to maintain between two commercial properties.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like and then you could have partnered on the traffic signal and you got this great road that kind of accesses the site through the Knolls property. You know what I mean?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Garza, I'm having trouble understanding exactly, you know, how that design of that would work, because a couple early iterations that we thought of was, well, if we follow Tucker roadway and then we just curve it westward and then eventually curve up, we're putting 80% of the burden on the Knolls property because of that, because we didn't.
The partnership is you
Of
come to
course.
the table together
Yeah.
to pay
Yep.
for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I meant by partnership, is not
Understood.
have them build it all. It's
Understood.
kind of work together to
Yeah.
get the dual access use.
Yeah. Yeah, and in light of what's been discussed and the ongoing conversations with the city, this is the first stage. So as we mentioned, we're talking about land use is commercial appropriate, and we've downsized the multifamily. So in the last item we heard is really this much multifamily, you know, needed. It is, but not yet. So that was the justification for us downsizing that multifamily and providing commercial here. So.
Great, Thank you. Any other, commissioners, any other questions?
Nope.
Related to zoning? All right, thank you. Very good. Now I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Would anybody from the public like to address this issue? Please come forward, give us your name and address.
Hello, I'm Jeff Knoll, 2130 East Kaler Drive, Phoenix, Arizona. My father, Bill Knoll, is here as well. And while we appreciate Simpatico's year of working on this project, we have owned this property for nearly 18 years. I got a little confused because it seems like it is a zoning request. However, there's a lot of talk about roads and a lot about where they're going.
Yeah,
And I'm a little confused on-
yes, we're somewhat sidetracked.
Yes. No, you're not necessarily sidetracked. It's also in what they're, Jim Gagliardi, Mr. Gagliardi is requesting you approve. Is there maybe potentially their narrative, by saying to update the land use to provide dimensions of each of the land use parcels? I feel as if that's one of his, your approval would be subject to that. I feel as if we're putting the cart before the horse here. How can you approve a rezoning of parcels where the parcel lines have not even been decided yet? Essentially by drawing these parcel lines, you are deciding where the roads are going, disguised as a zoning request. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Commissioner Garza had mentioned working with the Knolls. We did have a conversation with them about this specific proposal and alignment of the roads. And as Mr. Gagliardi had mentioned, it does leave us behind. We have a parcel in which we are working with. He had mentioned Quick Trip, who's also in attendance here. Behind them would leave us an unusable strip of land based upon how where they're proposing the east-west alignment of Tucker. We've already, part of our process of our future development with Quick Trip would be bringing Tucker south and then over to their land, and we would like to work with them to do that. However, we want to make sure that it's a win-win where we're not left with an unusable strip of land behind our potential development with the Quick Trip. So again, I feel as if this request is premature because we haven't decided where, working together, where we're going to put this eastern-western alignment of Tucker. So how do you draw these parcel lines that you're going to be approving for your zone request? Also, when you're looking at the north-south, that private or the collector road that's kind of bifurcates the commercial portion of their proposal. Again, according to ADOT and what we've been speaking with Mr. Gagliardi over the years, it was our understanding, we were made to understand that the first access available in this area would have been our property where our two properties meet. So we came to them offering, let's come up with a mutual shared access there. So you've got access on the west side, we've got access on the east side. As they provide it here, if you put their north-south collector road, that doesn't leave us enough room between their proposed road or parcel and our eastern property lines to put another access point, thus taking away our ability to get access to our property. So again, we have offered to make a mutual access drive there. That would do the same thing. It would come down to the Tucker and connect, but then it would allow us to have a drive. So again, I think there's a lot of discussions that need to be had on where these roads are going to be. And I know this is just a rezoning request, but everything that they're talking about here is where are these roads? So I think I don't know, it says here, subject to the dimensions of the land use parcels. How do I know what I'm agreeing to or not agreeing to if they haven't even given me dimensions of their parcels or where they want these roads to be, or what part, how big is the parcel, how small is the parcel, where is the apartments going? We don't really know. This is conceptual. How do you approve a concept?
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I have one more thing, if you don't mind. On the condition.
We've gone over time. So if it's quick,
It is
please,
quick. It
please
is
do it
quick.
quickly.
Just with the condition, because if you do move to approve, he says moving those parcel lines up to 10%. 10% of 300 feet is 30 feet. That's not going to do anything. So I don't feel as if the 10% is adequate. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that last input, too. Anybody else from the public like to address this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission.
Chairman, I have a
Yep,
question.
please.
Jim, can you explain how the divvied up parcels work with the PAD? So are the lines drawn via legal description of the areas we're talking about?
So unlike a hard zone where, say, there's a property zone B2 and only B2, we would know exactly what its dimensions are, its acreage, and its configuration. But in a PAD that proposes multiple land use areas, the legal description that we receive and the dimensions that were provided is just the boundary of the PAD. The individual land use areas are not specified. They're a little bit more ebb and flow, and they're more shown just graphically as an exhibit. And it's not until the next step after the zoning is approved for a PAD where those actual land use areas get defined, which would be at platting usually is when that happens, or when they go to parcel it out. And we do look to see if it matches, but it's not to a finite degree of square footage or area or acreage. Now, on most land use plans, and as you'll see here, they are estimating that parcel A, for example, is 4.29 gross acres. Parcel B, 6.47, parcel C is 9.25. So they are providing an awareness, they've probably done some survey work where the applicant has an idea of what these dimensions are, but the legal description and what gets approved as part of the ordinance is just the legal for the entire PAD. So that's why the condition, if it were to be, the recommended condition, if it were to be approved, it would allow parcel A, for example, to be reduced by as much as 10%, so from whatever 10% of 4.29 acres is, or increase as much as 10%, as well as parcel B or C to account for whatever shift in that east-west roadway needs to be made.
But the roadways aren't identified, none of that at this point. It's just
Correct.
the entire parcel that we have here, zone change to a PAD, which provides the mixed use.
Right.
more or less. Okay.
Okay.
And it isn't until the major site plan that we, if not the plating, it'd be the major site plan where we would not only have the actual specific dimensions, but we would have a more comprehensive traffic impact analysis that would be able to confirm their proposed locations.
Very good.
Yeah, Jim, I had a question. Can you talk a little bit more about the 10% thing that he mentioned at the very end? Elaborate on that, why 10% as opposed to 15% or what have you?
So just to recap, the recommended condition is a change in land use area for each parcel of up to 10% is permissible in conjunction with the review of a major site plan within the PAD. And so basically what that means is if there's a necessity to shift that east-west road to the north, if we did that, then parcel C, for example, would suddenly get bigger. And so instead of there being ambiguity in terms of, well, this conceptual plan showed parcel C being 9.25 acres, but now it's grown a little bit because it needs to meet up with the east-west road. And similarly, parcels A and B have now shrunk a little bit. There is flexibility written in with that condition that allows those acreages to change by up to 10% to accommodate for that.
All right, thank you.
But was there any
How did you-
calculation that you came up with the 10%?
No, I guess your question, why 10?
Why
Why
10?
not 15?
Right.
I think because 10 is relatively minimal, you know, it wouldn't result in a major change, but potentially there's flexibility to play with that number if Planning Commission wishes.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Very
so
good.
back
Yes.
to what Celeste, what you just said, Celeste. Because you understand the roads a lot better. If we approve this plat change,
We are not approving anything but the outside boundary of this parcel.
Right.
And allowing it to be commercial and multifamily.
Right.
That's all we're approving tonight.
nothing about the roads.
No, there's no right-of-way identified, none of that.
So if that's the case, that we are just voting to allow these different uses, then do we need this condition? If they can flex within that? I mean, if there's no amounts to it, then why do we need the extra 10% flexibility? I guess what goes through my mind, if we haven't defined any amounts.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, could I address that
Yes,
issue
please.
for you?
Please do.
James, will you take me to the slide that just summarizes the land uses that are being requested? Right there. Whoop, perfect. Okay, so although, as James mentioned, the legal description is for the outer boundary of the PAD, we are approving a commercial portion of the property to be 10.76 acres and the multifamily to be 9.25. Those acreages are pretty solid as part of the zoning. Even though we don't have legal descriptions for them, we do have acreages.
Gotcha.
If those were to be modified, if the commercial would to get larger, or the multifamily would to get larger, then we'd actually have to come in and rezone, do a major amendment, because major amendments to PADs are changes in land use areas. So we're just trying to give a little bit of flexibility administratively to flex those two acreages as we try to resolve this issue on where that east-west road really goes.
Very good, thank you, that was helpful.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then the question comes to mind, from the staff's position, are there issues with increasing the amount of flexibility? Giving you more rope to hang yourself with?
No, we can live with whatever flexibility the commission wants to give us and that council is comfortable with.
There you go. All right,
I think we need to do flexibility here.
all right, good discussion, y'all, good. Not trying to cut off the discussion, if you got more questions, any more questions, comments from the commission? Let's see, we've done the public hearing, we're back to the commission. Am I missing anything? Okay. Commissioners, we're back to you. Any more questions or your wishes?
So to bring that road back up, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead. No, that wasn't what was killing me. Please continue.
I'm a little,
Please continue.
so per Mr. Knoll, even at the 10% is not even going to bring the roads equal to what for the QT and everything. How much difference do we need?
Where I'm at with with that whole situation is we have this zone change, this PAD in front of us, and we have a potential QT, right? We haven't
even
seen
know.
anything. We don't know.
Right.
So I hate to accommodate something we haven't seen quite yet. That's where I'm struggling a little bit with that. Kyle's done the work here to
When do
try.
you think that?
Mr. Peters.
When do you think that information would be available then? The missing information, it's not going to be available then, correct? At this
It may
point?
not be available before they're ready to build anything, right?
But
Yep, may not be
Unless-
available till
unless
they've already
like-
started, well, we don't know what the timings are gonna be.
unless, like the director said,
kind of
that
a-
we changed the flexibility percentage ourselves.
It's kind of a who comes first type of thing.
Chicken or
Once,
egg?
once again, that's a common thread here. Interchanges.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
I would love that.
Okay. I recommend that we forward to City Council approval of DSA 23-00078, the zone change from B2 and R3 to the McCartney Commons PAD, subject to the technical conditions by staff with a modification to condition of record 1 from 10% to 20%.
Okay, I have a motion. Is that clear?
I'll second that.
I have a second. Any discussion? All right. All right then, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Thank you all. Hope that helps. Okay. Trying to move too fast on it.
I'm starving.
Okay, next we'll have a public hearing and consideration for a request by RBA Architects, behalf of Desert Taco LLC, for DSA 22-00227 and DSA 22-00226. All right, James.
Great, so in front of you this evening are two applications associated with the proposed Del Taco. The first is the request to approve a conditional use permit, which is required in property zoned B2. A convenience restaurant requires CUP approval. And the second application is for its major site plan. Del Taco is proposed to be a 2,304 square foot building on a parcel that's just shy of an acre. The proposed location sits within the Casa Grande Town Center subdivision. It was recently platted as a commercial plat, a 4-lot commercial plat, sitting in between AutoZone, which sits immediately to the west, and a multi-tenant commercial facility to the east. Superstar Car Wash is being constructed just to the east of this site on Lot 2. Here's some example elevations of the Del Taco, as well as the excerpt of their site plan. When reviewing conditional use permits, this is the criteria that requires evaluation. And I'm just going to quickly go over these criteria. Firstly, with regard to compliance with the general plan, a large area surrounding this site is within the community corridor land use, which does support a mixture of uses, including restaurants. There is urban ranch zoned property sitting directly to the north, but ultimately that urban ranch property would probably be more appropriately rezoned to something supported by the community corridor category. There is otherwise to the east, west, and south commercial uses approved. One of the criteria is the site for the proposed use is adequate in size and topography to accommodate the use, and that there shall be efficient means of fencing, screening, etc. used. the site does propose a screen wall along Florence Boulevard. This helps not only screen the parking areas, but it brings a little bit of architecture forward to the street, which helps with our community corridor category. They are also proposing a landscape screen along the north property due to the fact that to the north is urban ranch zoning. The next criteria is the site for the proposed use relates to streets and highways adequate in width and to carry the quantity and kind of traffic generated by the proposed use. So in conjunction with the Superstar that's under construction, the subdivision plat did provide a public improvement plan where, and it's under construction right now. There's a right-in, right-out just east of Superstar that provides access between lots 2 and 3. And then there's a proposed right-in, right-out along the west side of Del Taco, shared with AutoZone to the west. And there are easements in place to allow for cross-access. And both of these driveways will have right turn lanes as well. Lastly, with regard to the conditional use permit, that there's conditions stated in the approval that are deemed necessary to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. Staff is recommending a condition associated with that with regard to its detached signage, that signage for this site shall be limited to a maximum height of 15 feet and shall be monument in style. That is so that it does speak again to the general plan category of community corridor. The community corridor category promotes de-emphasis of vehicles. Parking should be screened, buildings should be forward. Having a taller sign is more of an auto-dominated scenario, accommodating for faster speeds. But this would be in line with what was approved for Superstar and other businesses in the surrounding area. With regard to the major site plan, there's a series of criteria associated with that. However, they're very similar to the conditional use permit, but the staff report does dive into these in greater detail. However, with that, I do want to move on to the notification. We did meet, which was required by city code. There weren't any inquiries or comments provided. So based on that, staff has the following recommendations. We recommend that Planning Commission approve the CUP and the associated conditional use permit resolution for a convenience food restaurant within a B2 zone with the following specific condition regarding the sign. And then our second recommendation is that we do recommend that Planning Commission approve the major site plan. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Okay. Yes.
Do we have a Del Taco? We
Yeah.
did, and it went out of business.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought,
Is
Not
it-
getting that old.
is this appropriate for the discussion?
well, because I was thinking they were
Trying
going
to
to
move things along.
relocate.
Jim, I had a question on
Mr. Van Eyck.
the back of the property. Is there like a block on the back of it, a block wall? Like, because I noticed that the, kind of a secret exit out of GIA school that comes ripping out of the back of there about 3:30 in the afternoon and kind of cuts all back through in there. So I don't know if is there a wall back there behind it in the back of it?
So there is a north-south access easement, but that's more on the AutoZone
AutoZone
property,
side,
so
okay.
it clears the Del Taco site.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And the north edge is
That's my school.
to be landscaped?
Correct.
But
The north boundary will not have a wall, but there will be a series of
Landscapes.
trees. Well, they're bushes, but they're very thick back there to provide screening.
Gotcha. Okay.
Jim,
Nice addition.
their driveway access is already built, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's under construction right now. Yeah. In fact, I was surprised that if you go to Google Street View, they're showing the construction. So I'm like, when did that camera try?
always watching.
Somebody's watching you. Okay, any more questions for staff?
Nope.
All good? All right, would the applicant or their representative please come up, give us your name and address for the record?
Hello. Yes, my name is Megan Hearn. My address is 2721 East Janelle Way in Gilbert, Arizona.
Great, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, or?
No, just that we're ready to feed all of these people coming into the apartments that are being built.
I love Del Taco.
Yeah, sounding pretty good right now.
No idea.
You didn't bring any samples?
I didn't, no.
That would sway the vote, Chris.
That might sway the vote. Commissioners, any questions? Yes.
Is this a new style concept or just the
It is.
regular
It's
one?
a new
or-
style concept. We don't have any in Arizona yet,
Okay.
but corporate has built a few out in Florida.
Okay.
And so for us, this is very exciting because
Nice.
it'll be a new concept. New build, white, contemporary, very good looking.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Nope, we're good.
All right, we're all good. Thank you. Appreciate you coming and being here. With that, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody like to address this issue, please come forward, give us your name and address. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission. Commissioners, what's your desires?
Make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I make a motion that we accept DSA 2202227, the conditional use permit, and DSA 2200226.
Just the one.
One at a time?
One at a time.
All right, one at a time. 227, the conditional use permit with the conditions are on the use permit for the sign height, condition 1.
Second.
And a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderheyden?
Yes?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. So, next question, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that we, DSA 2200226, we recommend the major site plan with no conditions on that one.
Right, you are, so I hear a motion to approve DSA 2200226. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Couple of them, pick somebody.
Coming up.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderheyden?
Yes?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Commissioners, one more or break, or take a break now?
Can we take a break?
Yes. 5 minutes.
Thank you.
5-minute break. 4 left. Yep, go for it. Go, go, go.
Yeah, I'm gonna see.
just wonky.
It's about as wonky as it
I like
Lady
wonky
stood on
lanes.
church. She passed away. She lived at that trailer house up there, on the way to Frito Lay. And she would only make right turns.
Oh,
Smart lady. She wouldn't make left turns anywhere there was a left turn in town.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. Right turns only. She would not make a left turn.
I understand that's how they plans their routes. Yeah, their routes.
the safest movement.
Right turns only.
To do right.
Are we ready to get going?
Well, thank you for calling it, because, I want to be tough and hang.
We're ready.
Stick it out. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Let's see, we just did the
We're
double
missing Mark.
whammy. We are on F3. We'll be holding a public hearing, considering a request from Good Living Ventures for conditional use permit and associated resolution, DSA 23-00065. Jacqueline?
All right, good evening, Commissioners. This request is for conditional use permit. The site is located at 2175 North Truckle Road. It's approximately 8.8 acres and zoned R4. There's conditional use permit is to allow recreational vehicles to exceed 10% in an R4 zoning district. Within the R4 zoning district, designated spaces can be set aside for recreational vehicles. However, these spaces are not to exceed 10% of the total number of spaces without a conditional use permit. The site has 80 total spaces, and they're requesting the ability to use 100% of the 100% of their spaces for recreational vehicles. There are currently 17 occupied manufactured homes within the site, and these spaces would be transitioned to RV sites as tenants move out. So one of the reasons for this request is that this site is within the 100-year flood zone, and per the 1570-760B, any manufactured homes, any additions or replacements have to meet special flood hazard areas and their specific code requirements, which includes raising the manufactured home on piers above that floodway hazard area. However, these floodplain requirements are too costly to upgrade the site with new manufactured homes. However, recreational vehicles that are on site for less than 180 consecutive days would be permitted, and per 1540-800 of the city code, which allows for recreational vehicles in these areas, they can be on site for fewer than 180 consecutive days, and they must be fully licensed and ready for highway use. And that means that they're on wheels or a jacking system is attached to the site and only by quick disconnect type utilities and security devices, and that there are no permanently attached additions. So here's the review criteria for conditional use permits that's been evaluated and covered within the staff report, and staff finds that all have been met, provided the special conditions of approval necessary to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. With regards to that, there are additional conditions added to the resolution. These are associated with the section 1540-800, and that is that the recreational vehicles shall be on site for fewer than 180 consecutive days, and that they are ready for highway use. An additional condition is that the site is adjacent to the Santa Cruz Wash Trail Network, and with the proposed development of Elaine Farms to the west and south of the site, that will connect the trail from Pinal Avenue. There's a need for additional easements likely around this site to connect to the already open trail just east of Truckle. So we've added another condition, and that is prior to the conversion of the 9th space, the applicant shall work with the City of Casa Grande Community Services Department to explore the possibility of dedicating an easement that will allow for a public trail construction along the northern boundary of the RV park. And here is the Santa Cruz Trail Network. As I mentioned, east of Truckle, it's already constructed, and it will be right now it's showing on the north side of the wash, but it will be moving over to the south side with the development of Elaine Farms. With regard to notification, the applicant and staff met all the requirements set forth in city code, and I did not receive any inquiries or comments. So with that, staff recommends the commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution for DSA 23-00065 to allow for recreational vehicles in a manufactured home park to exceed 10% of the total spaces provided for Rancho del Sol with the following conditions of records. It's happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Commissioners, any questions? Would the applicant or their representative like to come forward and address the commission?
Thank you, Jacqueline. City Council, city officials. I'm Mike Rothschild from Good Living Ventures, and we're at 1685 South Colorado Boulevard, Denver, Colorado.
All right. Anything you'd like to add?
No, we're happy with all the recommendations, and we will follow them.
Okay, and yeah, that was going to be my question. You're good with these conditions?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
How are they going to kind of like monitor the 180 days
Well,
of
we have
somebody
we
staying
have
there?
An on-site booking system, it's campsite, and you can only go in for 180 days in the booking system. And then we have an on-site staff person. So, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's pretty typical, and we have RV sites from Sierra Vista, here, Mesa, Peoria, and Wickenburg, and it's pretty typical in all those locations.
Okay, Commissioner, you good? Okay.
So
Go ahead.
somebody stayed there for 178 days, left for a day. No, typically when we do that, we have to, evict them. And,
Okay.
And then they could be there for another, it's a process,
Okay.
even in RV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Do you said you have one here now already in Casa Grande?
Well, we just sold an MH, Arizona Village. We just sold that.
Where was that one at? Where was that?
It's in Casa Grande.
He doesn't want to tell you, Mark.
Okay.
Oh, no, Arizona Village. It's in Casa Grande.
Yeah, I just
where's it
asked him
located?
whereabouts in Casa Grande.
It's
I'm
on-
just curious.
It's on Cottonwood, just behind Quick Trip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The one you just put the big.
Yeah, it has
Okay,
big
okay. That's
open
what I was getting.
there.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. So further to your question, they're sitting there
78 days.
178 days.
Leave
They
for a
unhook,
day.
leave for a day, come back.
Another 180 days.
Yeah, they're allowed to do that, but they can't stay in the same location, in the same spot.
So they just move a couple spaces down and they're good for the year?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and as far as, the issues with flood control, to my mind, as long as they can pick up and move,
Yeah.
then they're, then that, you're not having the kind of destruction that the flood would, you're not as liable to have that kind
Yeah.
of
And
destruction.
currently, the MH product is sitting at ground level that's there. So we've been removing them over the last, 5 months. And as people, we do have some park-owned homes there. So we did give the owners there a notice that they have to move out, in the month. And there's a couple of tenant-owned homes that, when they move out, and we'll probably offer to buy them out too.
Wow.
So it's just going to be all RVs now?
Yep. It can always go back to MH for the code, but it's you got to put 12 piers, over 3 feet high.
Mhm.
It's
No.
like about 45 grand a site.
No, yeah, I get it.
One more?
Yes.
So the other one that you get behind Quick Trip, is that what you guys did over there, the same type thing?
No, that's the one next to us.
By Quick Trip,
I'm not
QT?
familiar.
Isn't that where it is,
Arizona
Jacqueline?
Village.
On Cottonwood?
Oh, yeah. Arizona Village wasn't in a flood zone.
Is
So
it
that
a
was
mobile
all
home
MH.
park?
Okay.
It's a mobile home park.
Yeah, mobile home park.
And it continued as a motor,
Yeah,
after you
still
did the
mobile
remodel?
home park,
Okay.
I just have a little bit of
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know if this is a question for you. How often are people going to be coming and leaving? Like, what's the shortest duration to the longest? Just because Treckle gets a lot of traffic and moving trailers
like,
around.
How's it goes, like, if you have a 6 months, it's very affordable. So it gets more expensive. So if they do have someone for an event, on, nightly, it's just like any RV, nightly cost could be, $50 a day, where, monthly cost could be like, $250, $300 for the month. So, it kind of gets people to stay longer. And typically we get like traveling nurses and workers, and then some people
Like
are passing through
temporary
town.
stays.
Or
Yeah.
family members or relatives that are, need a place to stay.
Yeah, I've seen I live like kind of near there, and we've seen a lot of activity, and I figured it would be a place for, some of these folks who might be building a lot of this multifamily to come stay temporarily
Yeah.
in the area so they're not commuting back to Phoenix and
Right.
type of thing.
Yeah, and we're planning a pool too, in a clubhouse, additional clubhouse there.
That'll be nice.
Serves the purpose.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Okay, now I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public like to address this issue?
Don't panic.
Or not?
Good.
It's always good now.
I have seen the work that you're doing. Thank you. I travel Treckle Road a lot, and you can see the improvements. And you also had one on the south side of town too that you really upgraded, didn't you? Yeah, really, really nice. My concern or
Gloria?
question
Gloria?
is.
This way.
Gloria, you do 2 favors. Can you give us your name?
Talk.
Give us
Oh,
your name and address.
sorry.
And yes, we need to hear
Gloria
you.
Johnson, Story, 1245 East Laurel Drive.
Yeah,
And
did you-
1180 East Rodeo Road, along Treckle Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. Thank you, sorry. I just wanted to know, would the RVs be to the back of the park? In other words, the front wouldn't be established manufactured homes that you have?
No, we're removing.
So you're gonna be a total RV
There'll
park?
be a total RV park.
Really?
It'll be
Interesting.
a total RV park.
I'm not so happy now. Because I've seen the homes that you're moving in, or you have moved in, I know they've sat for a while, but I thought you were improving the park.
So, yeah.
Why is that?
So, okay, can we, to maintain the order, I apologize, I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, but it's not for a conversation. We need to hear your opinions and the
Okay.
things going on with you, and then.
I didn't understand what was being done, Brett. It said 10%.
Well, the rule they were under now is that they could only have up to 10%. Because they can't afford to do all the changes that they're being asked to do, to put in the, not recreational vehicles, they're asking to be allowed to do all of them as recreational vehicles.
So there will no longer be residential
Correct.
manufactured homes in that park.
That's a good description.
Or they would have
Is
to be
that-
on stilts.
Eventually.
That's a good description, yes.
Okay, because why are you saying 10% would be RV? I guess I don't
So
understand.
under the current code, under R4, they're allowed 10%
Uh-huh.
only. But because it's in a floodplain and they have to meet the floodplain requirements to raise them above, it's too costly for them to change and add additional manufactured homes. So the code does allow for recreational vehicles in the floodplain as long as they are only there for fewer than 180 days and are fully licensed to
So
be
something like
highways.
Desert Shadows is, or whatever that is at the corner of Pinnell and
That's it.
Rodeo.
Yes.
They can only stay so long.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an RV park, yeah.
That one I don't believe is limited because they're not in a floodplain.
No, but they don't have
Correct. They're-
permanent people there.
Correct, they're RVs and park models. This would not have park models, this would just be RVs.
Okay.
And it would be landscaped and.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know they've done really great work other places. I didn't understand it, and I apologize. I thought they were going to add RVs to the park. So all the homes will be taken out, and
Correct.
it'll be strictly RVs.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else from the public like to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commissioner. Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that the commission approved a conditional use permit associated resolution for DSA-23-00065 to allow for the recreational vehicles to exceed 10% within the Rancho del Sol with the following conditions of records as described by staff.
Very good. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. We got, very good. We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate you working on it. Appreciate the good work you're doing, and sorry you got into that. Sorry you got into that one. That's too bad. All right, next we're going to hold a public hearing and consider a request by Spencer Neerman, a conditional use permit and associated resolution. 5 offset parking spaces for foot and ankle clinics, DSA 23-00153. Sam, talk to us.
It's a hot one. Good evening. Spencer Neiman is requesting a conditional use permit for 5 off-site parking spaces for the Foot and Ankle Clinics of Arizona, which is located at 421 East Cottonwood Lane, DSA 23-00153. You can see here the 421 is the one to the west or the left-hand side. They will be requesting 5 parking spaces from 475 East Cottonwood Lane, which is the building there
Back.
to the east or on the right-hand side. So Spencer, he's requesting these conditional use permit for off-site parking. So this site is required as a medical use to have 1 parking space for every 200 square feet. With the 4,810 square feet building, they are required to have 24 parking spaces. The site currently has 19 parking spaces. Originally, when this little development was put together, they kind of have a shared parking agreement and arrangement, but there was never like a the conditional use permit was never applied for and received. And this is likely due because at the time, 421 East Cottonwood Lane was a commercial office space, which had a lower requirement for parking, and at that time, it did meet those parking requirements. Now, the parking area at 475 East Cottonwood Lane, they are required to have 1 parking space for every 400 square feet. So this building only requires 10 parking spaces. They currently have 21. So after making available or assigning 5 spaces to 421 East Cottonwood Lane, they would still have 16 available spaces, and they would still meet the current parking code and have some extra room for growth if that should come up. So when it comes to off-site parking, some of those review criteria are that off-site parking shall be developed and maintained in accordance with all requirements and standards of this title. These parking spaces all meet that requirement. It is required to have reasonable access from off-site parking facilities to the use being served. So The parking spaces at 475 need to be accessible to the building at 421. They do, there are sidewalks as well as marked pedestrian crossings. So it is, it meets this requirement. So it also requires that this off-site parking requirements require that either the buildings share the same ownership as the principal building, that they're under public ownership, or that they shall have a guaranteed permanent use by virtue of a perpetual lease filed with the city clerk and the county clerk. I know that the applicant, Spencer Neiman, as well as the owner of 475 East Cottonwood Lane, have been in conversations and have worked out an approval and arrangement, and they are working on getting these documents squared away. And then the last thing is that off-site parking must be less than 300 feet from the principal use, and all of these are well within that 300 feet. So this use meets all the above noted criteria for off-site parking. And then there's also the standard review criteria for a conditional use permit. Staff has reviewed these. There's notes in the staff report, and at this time, staff believes that all of these are met. All of the requirements for public notification have been met by staff and by the client or the applicant. There have been no inquiries about this. So at this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve conditional use permit and the associated resolution, DSA 23-00153, for 5 off-site parking spaces for the Foot and Ankle Clinics of Arizona, subject to the following conditions. And again, this is that there is a signed legal agreement making available the 5 spaces from 475 East Cottonwood Lane to 421 East Cottonwood Lane. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thanks, Sam. Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the 5 extra spaces are coming from 475 to 421?
Say that, I can't.
I apologize. So extra spaces are coming from 475 to go to 421? So
Yes.
somebody has, not saying it would, but if all these spaces for 421 are filled, somebody's going to have to park all the way over to 475 and walk to 421.
That is correct.
Why wouldn't you go to the middle and use those spaces for 421?
That would be an arrangement made by the applicant.
That makes no sense at all.
Well,
But I mean, it's fine.
Sam, excuse me.
Yes,
Sam, I'm
Mr.
pretty sure that 453, the middle building, does not have any surplus spaces to grant. That middle building just meets their minimum parking requirements. And likely what will happen is the doctors and the ankle clinic will probably have their employees
Park in those
park
spots.
over in the 5 spaces in 475, keeping the spaces on 421 open for their clients.
Okay.
That's likely how that will work.
And give up their covered parking for that?
Maybe.
I guess so.
To me, these kind of feel like a formality.
Yeah.
People are going to park where they want to park.
That was going to,
Well,
thank
that's-
you, that was going to be my next
Well,
comment.
that was
is
gonna be my
I will
comment
bet you-
too.
I'll bet you $100 to 1 that,
I just-
yeah, there's, nobody's going to park over there because there'll be a spot over here somewhere in that.
And as stated before, there is a parking arrangement that states that
There is.
essentially that
They all share.
they all share, but for them to operate, they have to have that conditional part. So
Okay. I was
to
just-
some degree, yes, it is a technicality that we're addressing here.
Okay,
All right,
fine with me. I need
very good.
steps.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's good discussion. Anything else? All right, would the applicant or their representative like to come forward, please, and address the commission? Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening.
For the record.
My name is Dr. Spencer Neiman. Our current home address. You want home address?
Whatever identifies you.
11608 East Twilight Court, Chandler, Arizona.
Okay. All right. Anything you'd like to add to the presentation.
We've been in the area for over 10 years. We've been on the campus of Casa Grande Hospital, right there in the side medical building, over by like Sierra Orthopedics. So we looked at this building as a larger building for us. We run a podiatry clinic with set schedules, so our set schedules really limit our volume of patients on a certain time at a certain hour and so forth. And so this is well adequate to what we need. We have 8 other offices, so we manage our administrative stuff in our Chandler office, and we don't really much more than use this office to staff it with a front desk and an MA and a doctor. So it's a much bigger building than we need, and so it's very adequate for what we need. So it's more than what we need, but again, the parking was the restriction that limited us on this issue, and the owners next door have been kindly to work with us on this conditional permit, so we appreciate this.
All right, very good. Do you guys have any questions? Very good, thank you. Appreciate that. Now I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public like to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
Make a motion that Commission approve a conditional use permit and associated resolution for the 5 spaces covered under DSA-23-00153 with the number one condition as stated by staff.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. All right, passes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next we will have a public hearing and to consider a request from Michelle Uhan for conditional use permit associated resolution, model home sales complex, seasons at Tuscany, DSA 23-00129. It's the Sam Show. Sam, talk to us.
All right. So Michelle Yuhan is requesting a conditional use permit, DSA 23-00129, for a model home complex, sales complex at the Seasons at Tuscany. You can see here an overhead view. It'll be the 2 lots. So this is a request for a conditional use permit to allow the construction of model home complex within the Seasons at Tuscany subdivision. The sales complex is proposed to be located on lots 86 and 87. And standard for our model home complexes, one of these lots will be turned into a parking area, the other lot will be turned into a sales office, and at the end of their sales run, it will be turned back into a standard home as part of their building plan. The home will have landscaping in the front and rear yard. The model home will have 6 spaces, one with ADA parking spot with wheelchair accessible. The ADA parking spot will be paved. The remainder of the parking lot will be surfaced with dust-free decomposed granite. And upon the expiration of the conditional use permit, the home will be sold. The parking lot and the sales office will be converted back to a single-family residential lot with all improvements removed. The review criteria is a standard review criteria for a conditional use permit. Again, staff has gone over these in detail and have found that this application does meet all of the review criteria. All the notification requirements have been met, both by staff and by the applicant. So at this time, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution DSA 23-00129 for a model home sales complex within the Seasons at Tuscany subdivision subject to the following conditions. And this is the standard conditions for our model home complex.
Okay.
And then are there any questions?
Yes, commissioners, questions? So we've removed the sign
Correct.
request, very good. The flags, notice flags. That variation has been removed. Okay, any other questions for staff? Would the applicant or their representative like to come forward, address the commission? Tyke, please give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Mario Mangiamelli, iPlan Consulting, 3317 South Higley Road, Gilbert, Arizona, 85297. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Richmond American Homes. Just want to thank staff for the very detailed presentation. This is a public hearing item. We are not aware of any public comment on this particular conditional use permit for the model home complex. I do have a question for staff, if I may, through the chair. It's just so I can report back to Richmond, because I was unaware of the removal of the condition on the signage. I think it was the last condition, was it J?
Correct.
J?
So there was a condition that had been
proposed,
and then we were informed that this is not the best way to put this. This is not the body to bring that in front of, and that would be a variance through the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so you can't deviate from the sign code through a conditional use permit.
Correct.
Got it.
Very good. Yep.
That's what I assumed, but we know what happens when you assume, so.
Yep, I sure do.
Yep.
Other than that, we are
all the time, yep.
Other than that, we are in agreement with the staff's recommended conditions of approval, and we respectfully request your support here tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions, commissioners, for the applicant? Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public like to address this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission. Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
To approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution, DSA 2300129, with the following conditions.
All right, conditions as presented. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderheden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck with the project. Excited to see it going. All right, next we'll hold a public hearing, consider a request from Michael Tipton for a conditional use permit and associated resolution to allow a 1,680 square foot accessory building, DSA 2300109. And it's a Sam show. Talk to us.
My last item on the agenda tonight. Michael Tipton is requesting a conditional use permit, DSA 2300109, to allow a 1,683 square foot accessory structure at his address 502 East 4th Street in Casa Grande, 85122. Here's an overview of both his residence as well as the site plan. You can see the garage there is on the bottom left-hand side in the right image. This is a proposed look at what this building will look like when it's completed. All right, detached accessory structures, uses and equipment in residential zones shall be subject to the following developmental standards. Accessory structures will Any equipment shall comply with the front and corner side yard setbacks required for a principal structure. This definitely meets that front and side yard setback. Accessory structures, uses, and equipment greater than 12 feet in height shall comply with the rear and side yard setbacks required for the principal structure. Again, this also meets those setback requirements. The total building footprint area of the accessory structure is located in the required rear yard shall be limited to no more than 25% of the area. This structure, it covers about 33% of the required rear yard. As proposed, it will require a Board of Adjustment variance for this, as well as it needs to go and get a variance for the height as well, due to the height being higher than the primary structure. Some of these review criteria, that the site is proposed to use adequate. This is a fairly large lot at 9,100 square feet, zoned R2. And then the rest of these are pretty straightforward, and staff again has gone through these and verified that that all these conditions are met. I do want to point out that the reason for the conditional use permit is that for an accessory structure over 675 square feet in a residential area, it is required that they have a conditional use permit. This building, again, is 1,683 feet, so it does require a conditional use permit. So that is the request, or why the request for the conditional use permit is that the building is large enough to need one. So yeah, the applicant as well as staff has met all of the notification requirements. And at this time, staff does recommend that the commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution, DSA 23-00109, for an accessory structure subject to the following conditions. The maximum size for the accessory structure shall be no larger than 1,680 square feet and not be used as a second dwelling. We are asking that the architectural style, building materials, and roof materials, color all fall in line with the primary residence. Any utilities need to be met with the building permit and other code requirements. On line F, you'll see that structure shall not exceed the height of the principal building without an approved variance by the Board of Adjustment. Again, the structure shall not exceed 25% of the rear yard, again, without that variance granted by the Board of Adjustment. And then that the development be in accordance with all of these, or all the conditions approval applicable to other city codes. Any questions?
Very good. Commissioners, questions? Okay, and these are some of the recommendations that you had adjusted the ones from the presentation.
Correct. There are
From the staff.
some
From the
clarification,
report,
yes.
yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah, good adjustments there, I think. Okay. Commissioners, no questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant or their representative like to come forward and address the commission, please?
Well, name's Mike Tipton. I live at 502 East 4th Street. Just wanted to say I'd access the building from the alley and put a fence there, and I'll landscape and, put a block fence around there after that, with the permit. So
Nice.
make that area look nice.
Good.
So,
Good, great. Yeah, looking at that picture you showed, I was gonna facetiously ask, you gonna put in a tree that's that big?
yeah.
Go to the next slide, Sam, that tree's 30, 40-foot tall tree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hurry up, put that up.
Yeah.
Mr. Fair.
Yes,
Question.
yes.
Hi, Mr. Tippett, did you say the access is from the alley?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we made sure, because you can go, there's an easement beside there.
Correct.
But they didn't want us to access through
Correct.
there, so the gate would be in the back.
Nice.
So,
That's a nice-looking building.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for him? All right, thank you, appreciate you staying late night.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Definitely. Boy.
right. Yeah, well, I guess it's my turn to open the public portion of the meeting. I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public like to address this issue, please come forward. Give us your name and address. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission. Yep,
I'd like to make a motion.
thank you.
I'd like to, where I lost it just a second ago. I would like to recommend the planning commission approve the conditional use permit for DSA 23-00109 with the following conditions be met.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the conditional use and associated resolution with the conditions as presented at the meeting here. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderheyden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Garza?
Aye.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes, good luck with the next steps. All right. Very good. Now, okay, public portion of the meeting, anybody from the public that would like to address the commission on any issues, please come forward, give us your name and address. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. And, okay, next reports by Planning Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There he is. Wake him up.
I thought he was asleep.
So, there were no administrative approvals the last month. There were 2 Board of Adjustment decisions. One to approve a comprehensive sign plan for the new Polaris dealership, and then also a Board of Adjustment approval of a temporary use for a temporary wireless tower on Courts and Thornton Road. City Council also concurred with all the recommendations that you forwarded to them, so all of those were approved. And I have provided you with copies of the monthly Development Center reports. And that's all I have to report.
All righty. Sir. Page.
Motion to adjourn.
Update from,
Oh.
if I don't mind.
Sorry, I thought you were.
Update from staff,
nudging
not
me.
sure what that means, is that, we've already done that, I think, huh? Monthly Development Center reports,
Oh, yes,
update
yes,
from staff. Okay, we'll call it good. Did you have a motion?
I have a motion to adjourn, please.
All right, a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.